topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Great to have you with us. My good friend Jonathan Cahn joins us now. His book that everybody's talking about, best-selling book, The Return of the Gods. Jonathan, good to have you back with us. How are you?
Always great to be with you, Bill.
Well, a lot has happened since you and I last talked in this past year with the success of Return of the Gods. At every turn, when we see evil being demonstrated in our culture, we can't help but think of your book.
Yeah. Well, it's not stopping. It's actually accelerating. And I knew that I had to write The Return of the Gods for this hour, and it's just everywhere. I mean, even people who don't normally speak about the spiritual or the demonic realm are speaking about it because it's affecting everything. It's nonstop.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it has invaded every aspect, but that's the nature of the spiritual, because it happens first in the spiritual, then manifests in the physical, right?
Yeah, always. And and sometimes the other thing is that when this all started, or when really America opened the door for this, and when they started driving God out, it starts out subtly. It's one thing, but as time goes on, it's like it's momentum. It accelerates and it becomes more and more blatant. What the seeds were planted, particularly in the early 60s, but they have never stopped. And it's so much so that it's hard to be shocked anymore, and yet it's still shocking. The next thing,
Well, and the thing that's so amazing, as you pointed out in this book and in your previous writings as well, Jonathan, is that the connection, it's like a series of dominoes. It goes back to ancient times. It goes through our culture and the history timeline. And then here it is. It opens this portal where now all the demonic has been welcomed back.
Yeah, this is just this week. This week, Target, they came out with this line of clothes, bathing suits for children, for toddlers that are trans, LGBT and trans bathing suits that actually hide, are meant to suppress genitals on children. This is like demonic. Even just 2 years ago, this would be unthinkable. But that's how this thing works. It just keeps going. And then what was shocking, last year is no longer shocking. And then another shocking thing happens. That's how it progresses. And it's never, there's no barrier. It's like it starts with, just open the door a little bit. It never stays a little bit. It just goes in this progression. That's how these spirits go. When they first came, when these first took over, in a sense, in ancient Israel, when you think about Ahab and Jezebel and Baal, the beginning, it's with Baal coming into Israel, it's kind of like, do your own thing. Hey, be open right. to it. But once they get entrenched, these spirits, then it is every knee shall bow. And that's
exactly
where we are. That's where we are.
Yeah. And like you said, it just happens one micrometer at a time. It's very progressive and it's consistent. And this is where we find ourselves, where the American people particularly, and what we're experiencing, not to sound so American centric, because sometimes we think, oh, it's only, happening here in America, but this same dynamic is happening around the world, isn't it?
Yeah, because, and unfortunately, because America is key in this. America was to be a light to the world. It was founded by the Puritans to be a light to the world. And in many ways, it fulfilled a lot of it, freedom and the gospel,
Yes.
But it's almost like whatever God uses, the enemy wants to use for himself. And God uses things of the enemy for good. The enemy uses things of God for bad. So now America is the number one power in the world that is exporting things like abortion, exporting the attack on gender, the attack on marriage, attack on biblical morality. It is America now. I mean, Christian America, we grew up with this idea of Christian America versus the godless Soviet Union. Well,
Mhm.
it's all reversed now. So yes, it's spreading to the world, and America is key. The West is key.
Mhm.
Actually, it's the nations that and cultures that have known God, they're the worst, because
Yes.
that's the nature of apostasy. That's actually the nature of that parable of Jesus that really sets the stage for the return of the gods, about the spirit that leaves, this house, this guy, and then comes back many times worse. So it's much more evil than a pagan world is a post-Christian world. And the West is the one that's going to lead that.
Mhm. Jonathan, is there any turning back on this? To where, the gates are open, the demons have been released. What is the hope for people of faith in times such as these?
The only hope is God, as he has always been. The only hope is Jesus, and the only hope is the Spirit and revival. Without revival, America is finished. There is no hope. You cannot counter spiritual things with physical solutions. You cannot count. The problem with America is not economic or political or cultural. It is spiritual, and you cannot solve a spiritual problem with something that's not spiritual. Only God can do it. Now, is there hope? Yeah, there's always hope as long as there can be revival. But and there is pushback. If you've noticed, like in the last
Yes.
year, there's been pushback. I'm in Florida, and at this convention here. And in Florida, there's a war basically with Disney on one
Yes.
of all things. Imagine years ago, you think that Disney on the side of these demonic things, and then you have DeSantis trying to come against and all that. But you see the fight for the soul of America, because this is all over America. So there has been pushback, like what was it? Was it Bud Light? Just did this thing, just celebrating transsexuality. Well, surprise, their segment was not thrilled with that. I mean, I don't know who came up with that. So it's been a big pushback. Actually, Disney right now is down 40%. Bud Light was collapsed. So there is a pushback. There's a natural pushback. The only thing is the pushback going to be enough? And without the gospel, without revival, that's not going to do it. And the other thing is that if you keep, we have these things happening, but at the same time, if nothing is stopping the indoctrination of the children, the next generation, then it doesn't matter. If you don't affect the children or the young generation, that's where it's going to go. And one of the most recent things, we're kind of doing an update. One of the most recent things that happened, Bill, the rate of those who say that they're not heterosexual in the older generation, it's like 1%.
Exactly.
The baby boom, it's about 2%, 1 out of 50. This just came out. This is high schoolers right now. The percentage is 25%, 1 out of 4, and it has multiplied. So where's it going to be in a few years? And if you look at the same number of those who say that they are born again Christians, it's almost like nothing. So what's going to happen to America if you don't change? If you don't have revival and you don't affect the youth, this is what's going to happen, because this is the next generation.
Yeah, exactly. The last time we talked about wheats and tares. And that has really stayed with me in considering where we are right now. And people are freaking out going, oh my goodness, we're losing everything. But I said, look, God's in charge. And we're at that point where, yes, both are growing at the same time. But it's so critical as a person of wheat that you're faithful to that calling, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And it's a very good analogy. Of course, the Lord gave it. They're growing together, and the Lord said, "Okay," because if I try to judge everything now, I'm going to wipe out everything. Everything, the good and the bad. So it has to be this way. But the other side is, it's like, people think that when they think of the end times, they think of, it's just dark. Well, it's not just dark. It's dark and light. You have dark, but you also have God saying, I'm pouring out my spirit on all flesh. You have dark, but you also have the gospel shall be proclaimed, and you have people from every tribe and tongue. So it's lights in the darkness. It's polarization. So the dark is getting darker, but the lights have to get brighter.
Yeah, without a doubt. And the thing is that, again, as people of faith, our responsibility is to draw closer to God for a time such as this, right? Otherwise, we're going to be we're going to be victims ourselves of this very powerful spiritual force.
The only antidote to the spirituality, the dark spirituality that we're having, is the Spirit of God and getting plugged in. If we don't want to be plugged into the darkness, we got to get more plugged into the light, and that's the only antidote. Then we can affect the world. We're still supposed to be the ones affecting the world. The world is not supposed to be affecting us. But we can only do that. All the great people of the Bible, they were real plugged into God. And we have to get that. We have to strengthen that connection.
Without a doubt. Going to break. More from Jonathan.
Customs authorities to detain illegal, disposable, flavored nicotine e-cigarettes from foreign countries, including China. Rich Marianos is a former assistant director for the ATF, now with Georgetown University.
These disposable e-cigarettes have become a real problem. It's encouraging to see the FDA act at the border, but our kids need them to take the next steps and remove these foreign disposables from the store shelves. They have the authority, and now it's time to act.
Sponsored by the Border Security Alliance.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're going to love it, and you're going to love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-699-0358. 800-699-0358. 800-699-0358. That's 800-699-0358. Has your heater or air conditioner busted? Appliance broken? Computer crashed? Then you need an ARW home warranty. Home system and appliance repairs and replacements can cause stress and cost you thousands of dollars per year. With an A-plus BBB rating and a top-rated home warranty company on Consumer Affairs and Trustpilot, ARW Home provides superior service, featuring the industry's lowest service call fee. ARW Home has warranty plans that cover your kitchen and laundry appliances, heating and air conditioning systems, electrical and plumbing systems, and much more. Call 800-559-7562 to customize your plan. Plus, ARW has partnered with Azurian to protect your new and used tablets, laptops, TVs, and other home tech from accidental damage and wear and tear. All plans come with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Call 800-559-7562. That's 800-559-7562.
Would you like to hear better for as little as 10 cents a day? Now you can with the all-new Audion hearing aids. The average hearing aid lasts about 3 years. Ours, at only $99 a pair, means you're paying as little as 10 cents a day to hear better. And to make things even better, we'll give you a 45-day money-back guarantee. Skip the doctor and get hearing aids delivered straight to your door. We've eliminated all the middlemen to offer you a factory direct price of only $99 a pair. Join over 300,000 people just like you who took advantage of our 45-day trial offer. Now you can hear better too for just 10 cents a day. Call now and order your $99 pair of Audion hearing aids with a 45-day money-back guarantee. Plus, get free 3 to 5 day shipping.
800-577-5319. 800-577-5319. 800-577-5319. That's 800-577-5319.
Have you with us, Jonathan Cahn, the author of the best-selling book, The Return of the Gods. Jonathan, I was so excited to talk to you about, our current culture and where we are. It might be appropriate for our audience. I can't imagine our audience not having read your book, but let's give them a quick encapsulation of The Return of the Gods and why you wrote this.
Yeah, this is really the mystery that's behind really everything as we're talking, that's happening, that's affecting our culture, affecting our world. And it goes back to the Bible. Of course, the Bible says that behind the gods of the ancient world were actually principalities. The word in Hebrew is shedim. In Greek, it's daimonia. We get the word demon from it. Paul says the same thing in Corinthians. They are worshiping demons. There's demonic. These are spirits. So in a nutshell, what happened was the whole world was under this influence, but the gospel came in and the gospel drove out the gods. I mean, that's what changed everything, particularly in the West. Now, the thing is that the
Jonathan,
gods
can I interrupt you really quick here?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
this came up before. When Jesus died, he was in the grave. The gospel says he descended into heaven. When he descended into heaven, was that part of what happened with the demons in terms of him binding the demons in hell at that time?
Well, that's a great question, which is argued about quite a lot.
Okay.
What they preach to the spirits, preach to the bound things. Well, I think what I would say is I think there's certainly a link, because the power of Jesus truly not only casts out these spirits and binds the spirit, but also literally in the history of our civilization, literally drove these things out. So I mean, I think it's all linked together. That power is there. In the Greek, the word is ekbalo, to cast away. And so not only did he cast out demons from people, he had cast out gods from a civilization. And the thing is, when the gods in a sense are gone, but the spirits don't die. So what happened to them? And for that is that parable that gives the final key. And that is that when he speaks about the spirit that goes out of a man, then says, I'm going to go back into the man. And if the man is empty, and so he brings 7 other spirits, and the man is worse than before. Well, not just talking about a man. At the end of that parable, he says, so it shall be with this generation. So in other words, it's civilizations, cultures can be possessed. They can be delivered. They can be repossessed. So the warning for America and the warning for the world, modern world, is that if any civilization, any culture, any nation that has been set free from these things, delivered like Western civilization has been delivered, America, then if it should ever turn away from God, if it should ever empty the house, its house is not staying empty. Those spirits that were cast out of it are coming back into it. And what the return of the gods is revealing is that we can actually identify the key spirits that were there in the Bible that are at work right now. In the book, I call them the Dark Trinity. The first one's called the Possessor. The second one's a she called the Enchantress. The third one's called the Destroyer. And this is behind everything. I mean, it's amazing because in the early 60s, we start taking God out. And then look what happens, like clockwork. The 60s explode, sexual revolution, abortion, all these things that are linked to these gods is actually linked to paganism. So these gods, these spirits are back, and they're back to transform this nation and this world and to repossess it. And the thing is, Jesus said, when they come back worse. So what we are heading for is something worse than what was in the pagan world. Between a pagan world, a pre-Christian world, and a post-Christian world, the post-Christian world is far more dangerous. And so that's where we're heading now. And so I go into each of it. I will do it as you're led. But the thing is that each of the gods are behind everything from the sexual revolution, abortion, to transgenderism and everything, LGBT, everything is part of this mystery.
It's all connected. And it's interesting that you talk about the 60s, because what happened in the 60s, we take the 10 Commandments out of the classrooms. We give entry into the sexual revolution. And, of course, one of the current movies that has been getting some positive attention is the Jesus Revolution that takes us back to the early 70s, right? And so I think it was quite interesting that you had, again, wheats and tares, right? So we have, free love, sex, drugs, rock and roll going on, Woodstock, all that. And then we have the Jesus Revolution that's taking place at the same time. And I think I go, whoa, this is interesting. So again, wheats and tares, right?
Yeah. And it's kind of like as the tares grow more darker, the wheats have to grow brighter. And so the wheats have to get more radical. And in other words, if you go back in time, everybody said they were Christian in America, but it was kind of gray because everybody, so it doesn't mean much. When you see when you see the revolution, or you see the sexual revolution and all the occult and all those things happening, what you see among the Jesus Revolution is something more radical. You see Jesus as something more radical. It's kind of all going back to the book of Acts. In the book of Acts, kind of like reversing. And so, you had this thing where you had Christian culture, but it became gray. Then you have the separating, the dark is getting darker, the brights have to get brighter and more radical. They might be more of a remnant, or there might be a smaller number, but they're going to be more radical. Look at the book of Acts. You had a small number, you had a pagan culture, and yet you had a revolution. So I think that's one of the dynamics, because if you're going to stand for God in these days, you have to be more radical.
Yeah, without a doubt. And of course, we know that with every revival in history, Jonathan, there was persecution, right? Because that's what ignited the revival.
Yeah, or yes, or there's a clash one way or the other, just like there was in the book of Acts and there was in the first centuries of the gospel. There's a clash because the light is not going to match with the dark, and if the light and it goes the same way, if the darkness is removing the gray from the darkness to get even more dark, which is what's happening in our culture, then the lights have to remove the gray from their life to get even more bright. So it's a process of polarization, and you're right. One goes with the other, and I believe it'll keep going that way in the end times. That if the world gets even more evil, those who stand are going to get even more great, like the apostles.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Well, and this is why people of faith have to really hold on to God and stay closer to God because of the times that are ahead, Jonathan, I believe.
Totally, absolutely. And I'm not. This is not planned, Bill. But because that just triggered it. But the book that I am working on, that's going to be released in September, that's only going to be revealed when around this time that you have the title, is basically going along with that. It's an ancient mystery, but it's giving a guide for the end times. What do we do? What's the answer? How do we live? And we're talking about this now, but how do we overcome? And that's what I'm really led, because we have to be that person. We have to be that people.
Now, this new book brought it up, so I don't want to violate it.
I wasn't planning on it, but yeah.
Anything? Yes. Well, isn't that us and the Holy Spirit?
You know what? Yeah, you know what? You were going right. Well, the thing is this. So I'll count this. I'll take a break to say this from what we're talking about. But it's actually we're recording this. It's actually the cover's being revealed, the title's being revealed. They're actually going to put it up on the web, so it's not available yet. I haven't even finished it, but it'll come out in September. But you can pre-order it on Amazon everywhere. So I'm going to tell you right now. Let me tell you the title. And here's the mock-up. It's not a real one, because the real but this is it's called the Josiah Manifesto, and it's the ancient mystery and guide for the end times. And it's going to be, and this is what it's going to look like.
Oh wow, very cool.
Yeah, and so this is going to be the mystery of what's happening in our times. But all these mysteries are going to come together, and it unlocks really what I believe is a guide. For a blueprint from the Lord for this age, for God's people. How do we stand? How do we overcome? What is our calling? It's more radical now, and all these things we're talking about. That's going to be. I've never done a book that. Done books with mysteries, but I never had one that led to this. So it's gonna. If they go on the web, they can see just the Josiah Manifesto. They can pre-order it. It's coming out in September. Yeah,
can't wait. Look at what you did to us. You teased us once again. Show us the cover, the mock-up again one more time.
And this is exclusive. I haven't showed it. I haven't done it. Okay. This is the Josiah. Oh, wait, let me put it here. You got this. We got this blurring. Wait a minute. Hold on.
Yeah.
Look at the mystery here. I'm not teasing. Right. This is this. All right. Wait a minute. Come on. Okay. Okay. This is what it looks like. I'm trying to get it. I think the enemy doesn't want you to see it. This is the Josiah Manifesto. This is the first glimpse on your program.
Wow, that's excellent. Well, we're so honored, Jonathan. Thank you so much. Yeah. We got to go to break. We got more from John.
diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. Ouch! Well, by wearing a small remote device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers. If you administer insulin 3 or more times per day or use an insulin pump, call now and learn how a CGM can help you.
Painless. No more pricking my finger.
No finger pricks.
Convenience. They delivered it free and they took care of all the paperwork.
You can reduce pain right away. Plus, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you spend more time in range. And if you have insurance, you can get a new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. Call now and get free shipping of your new CGM. Plus, we'll bill your insurance for you. 800-823-9853. 800-823-9853. 800-823-9853. That's 800-823-9853.
Hi, I'm Ronnie Deutsch, and if you or your business owe money to the IRS, I've got great news for you. Tax laws have changed. Billions of dollars are earmarked for IRS Fresh Start programs. And if you qualify, you can literally save tens of thousands of dollars. Listen, I know what you're going through. Call me if you want to speak with a tax attorney or tax professional for free.
800-247-1498. That's 800-247-1498.
Do you have heart failure and often hear,
"Those stomach issues ruined your birthday"?
"You're too tired to play catch, Grandpa."
Sweetie, you haven't touched your tools since the carpal tunnel syndrome diagnosis.
If these seemingly unrelated symptoms sound familiar, talk to your cardiologist and ask about transthyretin amyloid cardiomyopathy, or ATTR-CM, a rare and underdiagnosed disease that gets worse over time. Learn more at connecttoyourheart.com. That's connecttoyourheart.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
President Biden recently released a massive $6 trillion budget, the largest budget in U.S. history. And guess who pays the bill? That's right, you, the American taxpayer. American citizens and business owners will be paying more taxes. That's a fact. And if you owe back taxes, they will be coming after you to collect payments. In fact, President Biden also hired thousands more IRS agents to go after you. If you got a letter from the IRS and you know you owe back taxes or you haven't filed in years, don't put your head in the sand. Call us today. We've saved our customers millions of tax dollars. One quick, free phone call will show you how we can reduce your past tax bill and save you thousands. Guaranteed, or you pay nothing. Call now.
800-932-1597. 800-932-1597. That's 800-932-1597. Paid for by the Tax Helpline.
As promised, back with you. We're talking with the best-selling author, The Return of the Gods. Jonathan Cahn continues with us. Jonathan, you started to talk about the unholy Trinity.
Yes.
Let's expand on that in this segment.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. The idea is like, if these spirits are coming back, which ones, which gods? Well, when you look at the Bible and you look what happened when Israel turned away from God, there were three primary entities that are basically, epitomizing their fall of Israel. And that the first one is called the possessor. We know him as Baal. The name Baal is from Hebrew. Baal means the possessor. And this is the one that comes in at the beginning and turns the nation that has known God away from God. And that's what Baal did. Well, he did it. He's doing it to America. And this began, when you look at when did America start emptying itself of God? Early 60s. We take God out of school. Out of it. Well, Jesus warned, you do this, the house isn't going to stay empty. So you take God out of the school, out of the children, something else is going to come into the school and it's going to come into the children. Well, it's happening now. So Baal is what gets in. And this is the spirit that drove God out of the culture of Israel. Well, this spirit has been doing it in America for the last half century, progressively. And then it's also the same spirit that caused Israel to forget God. And so at the same time, we have a nation that has forgotten God, forgotten it ever knew God, cannot even imagine what it was like to have a nation where people, the teachers led the children in praying to God all across America. And then it also caused Israel to strike down the commandments of God. Well, we've literally done it, as you said, we've literally done it. but also it's a spirit that paganizes a Christian culture, paganize it. And this happens in every ways we don't even imagine. For instance, in the pagan world, you had one God, you had one truth. In God, monotheism, you have one God, one truth. In paganism, you don't have one God, you have many gods and many truths. So now we have this spirit in our culture saying there's no truth. Everybody has their own authentic truth. And so therefore, if a man says he's a tree, then that's his authentic truth. He's a tree. So the point is, this thing that we call wokeism and progress, it's all pagan. And the other thing is the sign of Baal was a molten bronze bull. Well, if you go, could it appear in America? If you go to New York City, down where the Harbingers are, you're going to see a molten bronze bull, which is the sign of Baal, the Bible sign of a nation that once knew God, turned away from God. It's all there. So this is affecting us. And now Baal, or it's like that first spirit that comes back to the house, opens the door and brings back the rest. And that leads to the next one.
Exactly. And you said when we talked earlier, Baal's port of entry was at the port of entry of New York, where so much of our country's history began, right?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, Bill, because not only, did much of America begin in New York, the economic power, the founding of the state, the George Washington being inaugurated, the New York was the first capital of, and the thing is that, but it's also a port. It's the gate of America. And God speaks a lot about gates. And it's interesting because New York has been a gate or a portal for so many of these things. I mean, and when I talk about Baal, I was in New York when they actually erected an object that was linked to the Temple of Baal in New York City. And they had a ceremony around it. They played music of Baal. They had the leaders of New York there. I filmed it. We filmed it there. Yeah. And the thing is that New York was crucial with this, but New York has also been the portal for much of the sexual revolution. It's been the portal of abortion in America by and large, overwhelmingly. It's also the portal of the war against gender and the changing of sexuality. It was all New York. I mean, it's interesting. That's because it's the gate. The gods get in through the gate. So it's very interesting that you said that. And so that leads to the next one, the enchantress. The Bible speaks about this one too. It says Baal and Ashtoreth. Ashtoreth was Baal's wife in Canaan, but this goddess appears there. Ashtoreth becomes Ishtar in Babylon. She becomes Aphrodite in Greece. She becomes Inanna in Sumer. She's one of the most ancient principalities. This is the principality of sexual immorality. She sexualizes a culture. So what would we expect to happen? We got Baal first. Then what would we expect? We'd expect there to be some revolution in the realm of sexuality. Well, it happened. And it's even called the sexual revolution. That's the fingerprints of this goddess. And this goddess was a prostitute. What does a prostitute who takes sex out of marriage, puts it into the marketplace? That's what she has sexualized America. And in ancient Greece, when they worshipped her, they called her you said sacred prostitute, but in Greek, the word for her was porne. Porne, we get pornography. She was the beginning. She was the one basically who invented pornography. For the first pornography on planet Earth comes from her. And so you have an explosion of pornography, and her basic mission is to take a Judeo-Christian civilization and paganize it through the realm of sexuality, and she's done it. And look at what's happened. It has not stopped. It's not stopped. Then it leads to the third. I'm just giving, of course, a quick, brief nutshell, but the third one is called the Destroyer. This is the one that led parents to offer up their own children as sacrifices. And the thing is, could this happen to America? It already has.
Oh yeah.
1970, it's like clockwork. First the possessor, the enchantress, sexual revolution, and now 1970 abortion comes to America. We are actually killing our children. That's where it began. And the thing is that then it became law in 1973 with the Supreme Court. But the thing is that this is not progressive. This is a pagan act. This is the most pagan of acts. This was the only thing that stopped this really was the gospel, the killing of children. But now it's back. And Jesus said they come back worse. So the thing is that when Israel turned away from God, they killed thousands of their children. We have killed over 64 million of our children. They come back worse. And that's how real this is. But then it goes.
Well, and the thing is, you're talking physical abortion. We're not even talking chemical abortions. Chemical abortions, the experts are estimating another 40%, Jonathan. So you're probably looking at well over, 100 million. Is that right? Yeah, those numbers.
Wow. Yeah. No, I had not even heard that. But that's amazing. Think about that. I mean, how great is a crime when you kill 100 million, a million people? What is that a crime?
Right.
For? But to kill tens of millions or 100 million. That's what we've done. That's what happens when you turn away from God. That's what they did in the ancient world. That's what we're doing. What we're doing is replaying it because the same spirits are back. It's affected everything. When you look at every major issue of the culture war, it all goes to these gods, every single one of them. And the next.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, and it attacks the foundation of culture and civilization that God had instituted. The family, the husband, the wife, the children, all that. It's the demonic has brought in a wrecking ball through these institutions, has he not?
Yeah, and that because if you get the family, you've got everything. If you get if you go to the realm of marriage or sexuality, because life comes from this. This is basic, and you then you destroy family, then you destroy civilization, and that's why the gods are always after the children. They're always after the family, and absolutely. And what is he said one of these gods, the goddesses, she was a prostitute. What does a prostitute do? A prostitute weakens family. So when the sexual revolution came, took sex out of marriage, weakened family, destroyed families, and that leads to the next part, which is exactly what you alluded to, and that is that the goddess in her, as she gets deeper, as she possesses a culture, another side of her takes over. And it says it in her ancient inscription. She says, "I am a woman, I am a man." It says it says in her hymn. It says she turns a man into a woman and a woman into a man. And so what are we watching now? It's exactly this. Now, this is her darker work. This is her later work. She could never do this at the beginning. It'd be too radical. But once she gets possession, now we move to this. That's why we're in this stage now. And so she's the goddess of merging the lines between male and female, about breaking, confusing gender. And so one of the things it says she grinds away the masculinity of men. And so look at the spirit that's in America. Well, that's grinding away the masculinity that hates men. It's crazy. The only time the culture celebrates masculinity is when it's from a woman. The only time
amazing. I'll tell you what,
when it's a man. That's crazy. That's the goddess. That's crazy. That's what she did. And the thing is that so the idea is to take men away from manhood, away from fatherhood, away from husband, away from women, and so that's exactly what's been happening, and to emasculate them. And now at the same time, it says she defeminizes women. She masculinizes women because she was actually a female with masculine attributes. And so that's what she's trying to make women into her image. So that's why we have what we have. It's all happening according to that. And then it gets into the other realm that she had a priesthood, and the priesthood were men who walked around her temples dressed up as women. And they're dressed in women's clothing, basically men in drag. And they had makeup, high-pitched voices. They would speak that way. They would dance, and the parents would bring their children to see the priests, these men dancing as women. So does that sound familiar? Well, that's where we
nothing new, nothing new under the sun, Jonathan.
No, that's the amazing thing, but it makes sense because you take out the only thing that ended that was God. You take God out, it's coming back, and don't be surprised, the exact thing is coming back. And also, she would also have her priests surgically transitioned, and so now that's back too. There's actually an inscription where where an ancient Sumerian inscription where the men are dancing before the goddess carrying scalpels as if to celebrate their surgical transition. I mean, this is back. The difference is that back then she possessed a priesthood. Now she's seeking to possess an entire generation of children. And that what Jesus said, they come back worse. So this is affected, that's taken over our entire culture. It's a spirit. It's not natural. I mean, the fact, another thing about it, Bill, about this goddess is she's the goddess of parades. So what's going to happen? You're going to have parades of the goddess. Well, what kind of parades did she have back then in Mesopotamia? Parades where men dressed up as women and women as men parading through the city with all sorts of color, all sorts of sexual licentiousness and gender bending. That's exactly what's happening. They're back. she especially possessed one month of the year. What was the month? St. Jerome identifies it as the month of June. And so June is back. Jesus said the spirits go back to the house they possessed. So she used to possess June. So she goes back. Now to us, it's coming like this is all new. It's not new. This is what was taken out, and now what's come back.
Yeah,
And
this is amazing. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Even the sign of the rainbow is linked to the goddess. It says it calls her Rainbow Ishtar. She was the one, she says she makes herself like a rainbow to wage war, to enlarge herself. She wages war through the rainbow. There's something, every single color of the rainbow of the flag is linked to the goddess. And if people realize there's so much more to this, if people realize the dark mystery to it, they never would have anything to do with it. But that's why it's taking over our culture. Bill, when Christianity was ascended in the Roman Empire, it was, if they said Constantine saw a vision where it said, in this sign conquer, the sign of the cross, that overtook all the other pagan signs. But now we're seeing the reverse. Now the cross is being removed and the rainbow is coming in its place.
Wow, it's amazing.
In this sign, they are conquering.
Yeah. Well, again, we know that a void cannot exist, that you empty out something's going to fill it in. And you've got this progressive movement over the generations that has been pushing God out inch by inch. And here we are, and we're going, how much worse is it going to get?
Yeah, it's amazing because when you think it can't get worse, look at it. I mean, because there's no limits to these spirits. The only limit is destruction. Because the name for them in Hebrew is Shedim, which means destroyer, and the only end of it is when they destroy. Because when they destroy, there's nothing left. So the end is destruction. That's why, by the way, right now in America, we have more suicide than we've ever had. We have a generation killing themselves, generation that we've confused, and they're killing themselves. We have the most I think they said like 1/3 of teenage girls have either attempted or thought of committing suicide. What's that? And
exactly.
Also the ones who are most likely to commit suicide, those who have been confused about their gender. That's statistics. So these Shedim are interested in destruction. That's where they go. That's the end game of it. And it's amazing because, in the 1970s, Ruth Graham told Billy Graham, said, if God doesn't judge America, he owes an apology to Sodom and Gomorrah. That was in the 1970s. Look at how far we've gone since then. I mean, it's madness.
Yeah, here we are. We're allowing our children to be mutilated and further confused, Jonathan. And again, the word of God is quite clear. The fear of God is the beginning of all wisdom. So the opposite has to be just as powerful, right?
Yeah, well, the last part of the Return of the Gods is, I called it the other God. And because the other God is the God, the God. Everything else is an imitation. And the thing is that the power that we have we got to remember is greater. There's only one true God. And when Moses led the people of Israel across the Red Sea, he wrote a song. And it went like this. And he said, Micha mocha be'elim Adonai, who is like you, O Lord, among the gods. There's no comparison. Like you, there's no comparison. The Almighty, there's nothing left after the Almighty, and there's no comparison. There's no Savior like our Savior. There's nobody like Jesus. There's no runner-up. There's no number two. There's no, there's only one. He's still the same. You can argue with him. You're not going to change it. There's nobody like him. And the thing is that it was his name that cast out all these gods, cast out Zeus, cast out Athena, cast out Dionysus, cast them all out. One name. So that's the power we have. But the problem, if we don't use that power, we're going to lose. If we use that power, we win. The thing is that the agenda of the gods is always to silence all opposition, make every knee bow down. When they come in the door, it's always in the name of tolerance. Anything goes, do your own thing, live and let live. Once they get in the door, then it's every knee shall bow, every tongue will confess. Now it's cancel culture. Now it's conforming. But the thing is that now it's be quiet or we're going to cancel you. Don't be quiet. You have to speak. You got the power of God. You have the power of Jesus. This could be the greatest moment. When people are afraid of the end, don't be afraid of the end times. If God didn't want you there, he wouldn't put you here. He wouldn't put you now. And the thing is that people pray, I wish I could live in biblical times. Well, congratulations. These are biblical times. These are the days of Moses. He dealt with the gods. Elijah dealt with the gods. Paul dealt with the gods. The Maccabees, everybody dealt with the gods. In fact, it's very rare this what we've been in is an exception. They weren't living in the Christian culture. So all right, now it's our turn. This is a time for greatness. This is a time when the lights can really become bright.
Can you imagine, Jonathan? I mean, here we are. We're seeing the hand of God, and you say the name of God, that powerful name that truly every knee will bow, every tongue confess, every nation will bring gifts and honor and glory to when he is in his rightful throne as the Lord of Lords and King of Kings. This is where we're heading. This is exciting.
Yeah, I mean, we know, the night comes before the morning. So we know, on one hand, it's got to get worse before it gets better, but it's going to get better. That's the ultimate thing, and the fact that, the fact of getting worse, that's the Bible said it all, and the Bible has said this is going to happen. So we can't be shocked when the Bible said it was going to happen. And the thing is that, we used to talk about like years ago, people get into prophecy and like, oh, it's going to be exciting. Now it comes and everybody's scared. Everybody, listen, this tells you God's on the throne. It's happening.
Amen.
Israel's back. The apostasy is all over. Well, listen, welcome to the end times. This is okay. Right. It's the way it's supposed to be. But you know what? When you watch a movie, what's the most exciting part? The last 15 minutes. Well, God saved us for the most exciting part.
Right. And only God tells us, he knows the end from the beginning. He tells us what's going to happen. So no big surprise here, right?
Yeah. I mean, you read the end of the book and you see it all, and then you see something really good, and because we're heading to the dawn, so we have to stand, and the thing is, but when you look at the book of Acts, we all say, I wish I could live in the book of Acts. Well, the book of Acts, that's what you had. You had persecution, you had an anti-Christian culture, you had a pagan culture, you had the gods, and yet you had the power of God overcoming it. So that's what we are to be now. God wants another book of Acts.
Well, you see, and that's what encouraged the early church leaders and participants in the church, is because they saw the hand of God. It was undeniable, Jonathan, right? That's why they were able to go forth and, be martyrs and die for the faith.
Yeah. Well, because, it says where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more, and the power of God is made, and the grace of God, the power of God is manifest in its opposite, in the contrast. So maybe it takes the contrast to kind of shake believers up from being asleep. We've been asleep, we've been apathetic, with all this quote Christian culture. That's the other side of it. That's the problem. Now those who stand are going to be awakened, and those who stand are going to be the ones who can change the world.
Well, Jonathan, a minute left here. I'm going to let you summarize everything and bring us home. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Well, listen. These can be the most exciting times. That actually, you know what, Bill? I'll share. I haven't shared this anywhere too. When I ended, the day that I finished the Return of the Gods, it was the day that the greatest altar we have, which is abortion, the altar of abortion, was broken open. That was the day the Supreme Court took it. On the day I finished it. And so God was saying that, and that's what led me to go to the next book. That's what God said, no, the next one's going to be about the broken altar. So that's why, by the way, I'm not, but if you look at it,
please.
You see a broken altar there? You see that broken altar? That was the day I finished the Return of the Gods, because there's hope. There is hope, and this could be the most exciting time ever. I'm just what people want to see. I haven't lifted this up, but this is what the Return of the Gods looks like. It's everywhere you can get this, because the other one, you can see it, you can pre-order it, but this one is already out there. So I pray people get it for their people in their lives who also are going through this and are under the influence of it. But listen, God's on the throne. Be the one that God says he looks for, the one whose heart is his. He'll lift him up. You be that one, and God will lift you up.
New York Times bestselling author, my good friend Jonathan Cahn, author of the book, The Return of the Gods. We'll look forward to September and the follow-up, the next deposit for us, huh?
Amen. Thank you, Bill. Always a joy.
Thank you, Jonathan. Love you, pal. Take care.
Bye.